Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Robert, your host, as you already know, and thanks for being here. We've got such an interesting show today. I think you guys are going to love this show. Please subscribe to my online membership forum at robertcabral.com. Follow me on all social media. That's all great stuff. I'm working hard on this podcast to make it something different. You know, I love talking about dogs. I love dogs. I know if you're here, you got to love dogs too. And we've had some really interesting guests on, and everyone brings something really unique to the show. And today I've got a guy here. Him and his wife have an amazing story. You want to talk about amazing stories? This is an amazing story. And I can't do it justice. I really can't. So I'm gonna bring Jim on to share the story with you. And I think you're gonna be moved by it. I think you're gonna look at your dog differently after this show. And you're going to look at your life differently after speaking with Jim or hearing what Jim has to say. So, Jim, welcome to the show, Jim Nelson. And
thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Jim is an amazing guy. I don't know that much about what you do for a living or what you've done for a living, but your story just really moves me. So let me kind of give people kind of the Reader's Digest version. You had a dog named Jerry. Jerry had, did you rescue Jerry?
We did, as a puppy.
Okay, so as a puppy, you got Jerry. Jerry's a lovely dog, and Jerry gets diagnosed with cancer.
At about 8 years old, yeah.
Okay, and now what kind of cancer was it?
So it was the worst kind of dog can get. It's bone cancer. It's osteosarcoma. He got it in his scapula, so his front left leg had to be removed.
Wow. Okay. Now I've known people who have had this, and it's a devastating call when you finally get the call. So I'm going to talk about the journey in a second while, because people are so. I mean, it's just the worst thing. I mean, I just took him in because he had a little nose bleeding, and we're checking him out. I don't know what it's going to be. I was crying about it yesterday. I'm a total sap. I'm a tough guy, but I'm a total sap when it comes to anything with dogs.
Me too.
So you got Jerry as a puppy. Tell me what happened when you first got him. Where did you find him? Let's go through this really happy journey in the beginning first.
Sure. So my wife, Rene, and I were living in San Francisco. We had lucrative Silicon Valley jobs, and we got the crazy idea to move to Eureka, California, and start our own business. And all of our business is still down in the Bay Area. We were workaholics, and she kept wanting a dog. And I said, we don't have time for a dog. I don't have the time to dedicate to a dog. I'm not ready for a dog. And then I was out of town on business, and events led to me agreeing to her wanting a dog. So we went to the local shelter and found a dog that we more or less wanted, a watchdog. We wanted a strong German Shepherd looking dog. And we thought we found that in Jerry. He was in his cage, and he was a tall, lanky Shepherd looking dog tearing apart a crate and we thought that's the one for us. And we didn't exactly get a guard dog, but we did get what we called our chief fun officer. So we were working from home. We were workaholics, and we were slaving away. And Jerry kept us sane through those Silicon Valley heydays when all my clients were demanding at all hours. He would nudge the keyboard. He knew when 5 o'clock came around and it was his time to go play. But we'd take these Jerry breaks throughout the day and just kind of take a breath of fresh air and realize there was more to life than working so hard. And the business grew, and come 8 years later, we would go on hikes. We did the parts of the Pacific Coast Trail. We were always on the beach every Friday. We were very active with Jerry, lots of runs and walks and hikes in the mountains. And we came back from a certain hike one day, and he jumped out of the truck, hit the ground, and let out this yelp that was just blood curdling. And we thought, it was a long hike. He's sore. He was diagnosed with some potential dysplasia as a puppy. So we thought, he's 8 years old. Let's go to the vet. And we trusted our vet. He had all the bells and whistles and the big words. And I trusted him. And he said, it's arthritis. He's getting old. Give him this NSAID, a non-steroidal. Sure. And he got a little better. Then the limp would return. And dogs are so good at hiding their pain that we had a hard time figuring out what's going on. The limp would disappear. Then it would look like it's on the right leg or the left leg. And we went back to that vet we trusted a few times, and he put him on a different medication. He's getting old. Maybe you just need to not walk him so far. And being so active, that was tough for us.
Sure.
And one of his vet techs followed us out to the car one day and just said, you might want another opinion. And we encourage everyone to yet another opinion if they have any questions about their dog. Because when we did get that second opinion, we found a great vet who took an x-ray and looked at it and said, I don't know. The first vet refused to say, I don't know. But by saying, I don't know, she said, we lived a few hours from Davis, one of the best teaching hospitals in the country.
Absolutely.
And she said, you should get a closer look at this. It looks like it could be cancer, but I don't want to tell you that. Long story short, we took him to Davis, and they had to put him under to do a full, thorough scan. And when he was under, the vet called and said, yeah, sure enough, this is cancer, but we think we can get most of it by removing the leg. And Rene and I were sitting in a hotel room. Our jaws just dropped. And, what are we going to do? We hung up, and he said, we can do this now while he's under. If not, we might have to reschedule a couple weeks, or we cannot wake him up. And that just hit me in the heart. I'm like, no, we're not ready for that.
Yeah.
And we were searching online. There was no real support and information. There was lots of technical data about cancer, but we found a video of a giant Great Dane digging up a gopher with one front leg. And his name was Moose. And we thought, wow, if that big old dog can do it, Jerry can do it. Right. So we called him back right away and said, yeah, let's proceed with this. And the next day was Thanksgiving Day, 2006. And the doctor came into the hospital to release Jerry. And we thought he was going to come out on a gurney and have tubes in him. And he came hopping down the hall with a smile.
Wow.
And it was, we tell people, don't look at the scar, look at your dog in the face. And there was such a difference. We compare pictures to him before the amputation and afterwards. And he was, the ears were back, his eyes were sunken. And afterwards, he was literally, hopping out of there with a smile. So they tend to bounce back quite literally. And our lives changed forever after that.
So when he first got diagnosed, I like the story. So, and I think it's so huge. It's not an insult to your vet, and if it is an insult to your vet, you got the wrong vet. But get a second opinion. Just ask, because vets are quick. And I'm not saying all vets, but vets are quick to say, "This is what it is. Take 2 of these and let me know." And a lot of times there's underlying stuff. I remember my dog Silly, the Shar-Pei I had. I took him to a vet, and he wasn't eating. And I said, "Well, what do you think?" He says, "He's just not eating." And, dogs don't not eat. They'll go a day or so, but he went like two days without eating. And I said, that's weird. And I took him to another vet who's my current vet, who I didn't go to at that time. And she said, let me run a blood panel on him. She ran a blood panel on him. Boom, the next day she said, he's in kidney failure.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, man, if there's nothing else you take away from this podcast, if you have a question, follow your heart and just do what's right by your dog and get another opinion.
Exactly. That's why, there are board certified specialists out there. That's why there's oncologists that are trained in looking at scans when a vet can look at something and say, yeah, it might, it's not a break. But, definitely the good vets are going to say, yeah, here's a referral to an oncologist or a board certified surgeon. Yeah,
or any different,
whatever
a kidney specialist, heart specialist. Yeah, exactly. So that's important. So now, Jerry, obviously, I mean, I've rescued dogs that have 3 legs, and I always say, what's wrong with them? They got 1 more leg than us.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, they don't know any different.
It's true, and that's why we like to say dogs are born with 3 legs and a spare.
That's great.
Because once what the amputation did is it didn't get rid of the cancer, but it got rid of the pain. That bone tumor pain is excruciating and it only gets worse.
Sure.
Get rid of that pain and it's a matter of quality of life, not quantity. That pain's gone. The recovery pain can take, 10 to 14 days. But after that, it's just a matter of doing some rehab and rebuilding some strength and adapting to what we call the new normal. Yeah. And they can live a long, happy life. Jerry ended up living 2 years. Wow. He was given 4 to 6 months.
So wait, they gave him 4 to 6 months after they took the leg off, or if you wouldn't have taken it off?
When they took out the leg, they said this won't get rid of the cancer. It will come back. He could, and vets give the worst possible scenario.
Sure.
They want to cover their butts.
Yeah.
And they said it could come back as early as 6 months. Maybe you might get a year. Chemotherapy was presented as an option, but this was 2006, so it wasn't really pushed on us.
Right.
And it was 6 hours away. So we decided if we're only going to have this much time left with Jerry, we're not going to spend it going to the vet, getting these treatments all the time. And Rene had this crazy idea that we should just sell everything and take a road trip to travel with him and spend the time we had together.
Okay, that was my question. So it wasn't your idea. It was Rene's idea.
It was. We were at a point in this business where we were ready to expand, which meant hiring sales. And if I hired sales, then I needed, production help. And we had been doing it almost 10 years. And she just had this crazy idea. She said, let's sell, let's sell off the business. Let's sell the house. Let's buy an RV. And she's great at planning. She budgeted for a year on the road. Wow. We were going to take a sabbatical and just spend time with Jerry. He had waited for us every day for 8 years basically, to finish our work. So we thought, let's just spend every day with him, traveling the country, and just enjoy it. And when the cancer comes back, he'll let us know. And he ended up living 2 years. So
you because I want to go step by step on this.
Sure.
It's too fascinating just to skip over. So you get the three-legged dog, right? And you say, okay, your wife, which is great, because if you came up with the idea, trying to convince her, I've got a fiance. I was thinking that'd be a great thing to convince her, but you got to let them convince you. So you did it right. You did that. You played that one really well. Okay, so she says, let's sell it, and you're like, I don't know. Okay, let's do it.
It was basically just like that,
right?
Because I was getting kind of burnt out on the business, and I knew anything that she puts her head to, she'll plan it right. And I thought, a year off, that would be great. I'm ready to do something else. Our goal at the time was to relocate. Let's go find a different community. Let's buy another business or start a new business somewhere else. We had done it once before. We could do it again somewhere, and let's explore and let's enjoy this time together. But it was about at 6 months when, from the beginning, I would talk to Jerry. I mean, you talk about canine conversations. We communicated real well. And I told him, stick with us, buddy. You just hang in there, and we're going to go on a road trip. He loved road trips. So I would tell him, we're going to go on this great adventure. Just hang in there. And at the 6 months, he was still acting perfectly healthy. He had rebuilt his strength, and he was kind of blowing away the doctors. And he lived up to the promise, and we took him on that trip. And after about a year, we had started this little blog to just kind of tell people about his progress and kind of share stories. But we started getting inundated with emails and like, oh, I have a pug with mast cell cancer, or I have a Great Dane with a rear leg amputation. And I didn't know anything about that. I had one type of dog, one type of cancer. Right. So I installed discussion forums. I said, let's provide a platform where people can talk to each other. And then the website started blowing up a little bit. So I added a chat room. And then after a year and a half, we were discovering, this could be our new business. This could be our calling. Let's, put some work into it. And we started selling assistive devices. We started reviewing harnesses and ramps and boots to help these people help their dogs. Yeah. And at the end of 2 years, when Jerry, finally had his calling and we finally set him free, people asked us, are you going to keep this up? And we decided, yeah, we have to. And at that point we were, going to blogging conferences and monetizing and this sort of thing. And we focused wholeheartedly on the website until the point where it was becoming rather costly. And in 2014, I think it was, we actually formed a nonprofit foundation to keep the website free for people with all these resources. Right. And now it's allowed us to start providing financial assistance programs for amputation and rehab and that sort of thing. So if you had asked me, in 2006, if I'd be doing this 12, 13 years later, right, I would have laughed out loud.
Right.
And it still amazes me. I mean, but we do it for those people who are going through this difficult time, to let them know they're not alone, and most dogs cope much better than their people do. Yeah,
that's an important piece, because when you get that call, you're just suddenly everything. It's like life is sucked out of you, and I don't care what. If it's a fatal diagnosis, it's gonna suck the life out of you. Whether it's kidney failure, heart failure, cancer, whatever it is, it sucks the life out of you. And you don't know what to do. It's like I always equated this to, I mean, I don't have children. I mean, I have a stepdaughter, but I don't have my own child that I guess fertilized or whatever they call that. But it's like when my dog died, that was it. Like that was my whole life. So it's like losing a child, because they say that there's a great Japanese poet who wrote this poem and says, and the poem was, grandfather dies, father dies, son dies. And somebody said, that's a horrible poem. It's so sad. He goes, if I put it in any other order, it would be worse.
That's great.
Right. So the idea,
that's true.
Right. So the idea is, we don't expect something that we've seen come into the world per se, like our dogs, to leave before us. We expect to leave before them, but it is a blessing that they die before us because we can kind of give them the dignity and this and that. I always worry, God forbid I die and my dogs are left behind. I mean, my fiance would take care of them, but it's such a responsibility.
It really is.
So did Jerry, once he got the amputation, right? I want to kind of go back into that. Did he
Sure.
require any medicine, or did you do any like physical therapy with him to kind of help him along, or did he kind of just figure it out?
So at the time, we didn't know what we know now about the importance of rehab and exercise. And we learned the hard way that we kind of allowed him to overdo it a bit much. And later on in our travels, we met rehab vets and certified therapists who kind of explained, here's the things you need to do to adapt to this new normal and the new gait. And don't play Frisbee and have him slamming down on that leg that, he loved it. Oh, it was so fun to watch. And we have great videos. And then we realized, oh, he's got an ACL tear. So he was 3-legged and he came up with a bum rear leg, and the vet said he's got a partial ACL tear. And that's when we discovered it's really up to us to be the best advocate we can for our animals, because they will just go, go, go. I mean, he loved doing it, and he would drive himself into the ground. So we needed to kind of rein that in and help him, live a better quality of life on those 3 legs. Medication wise, we kind of opted out of the chemo, and we focused on a dietary regimen and some supplements that we had researched and determined, let's stick to this one thing and document it and put it on his blog to share kind of how he did on that. And it was, we were giving him alfalfa and immunity supplements, and we just kind of stuck with that until it was 16 months or so when he was going in for a regular checkup, and we were going to the vets as if we would with a 4-legged dog. And we explained the story about Jerry, and he said, well, when's the last time you had x-rays? Well, originally I decided not to do those. I thought Jerry would just let us know, and I didn't want to, worry so much by doing these x-rays and following it so closely. We just wanted to live life with him because he was teaching us how great every day is. But this vet just said it's better to know than not know. And we love it. Right. We did those x-rays, and they discovered metastasis on the lungs. That's usually where it shows up first with osteosarcoma. And I was thrown back to day one where he came out of the hospital without a leg. It was all those fears, the uncertainty, the doubt was coming back. And Rene, being the researcher and planner she is, she found, we were on the road at the time. So she found an oncologist nearby, and we went to a great clinic in Santa Fe. And they said, sure enough, and, here are your options for that. We could bisect a piece of the lung out, and I wasn't about to put him through any more surgeries. And we got him into a clinical trial for some immunity supplements, mushroom-based supplements, which are all the rage now, as well as what they call metronomic chemotherapy. And that was a low-dose chemo pill we could administer at home, because we weren't going to be staying anywhere and getting chemo. Our road trip was going on, and he was physically still healthy. We had no idea this was going on inside him. So we started doing those metronomics and the immunity stuff, and that, we believe, bought him another 8-9 months of quality life.
Wow. Okay. And you talk about all that on your forum.
We do. In the forums, there's all his stories documented intensively. And then by creating forums, and now we host 1,500 plus 3-legged dog and cat blogs, people are sharing their own stories and their own supplement regimen and what they're using and showing the results. So the information is really overwhelming there. It's something.
And all that is on TriPawds.com, right?
Correct. TriPawds.com. That's spelled with a P-A-W in the middle.
Yeah, I love that.
TriPawds. Yeah. We coined that after Jerry's amputation because the vets in Texas, Davis, were calling them tripod dogs. And I thought that was kind of derogatory. And then I thought, you know what? Let's start a website and let's take over that word. Let's regain it. Let's empower the word tripods and spell it TriPawds. And at .com, there's discussion forums, 1,500 blogs. What we've been doing over the years, Rene and I go to vet conferences and we interview the leaders in their fields, the board certified surgeons, the rehab professionals, the oncologists. And we like to present qualified information and from the source that we can cite that is actually good information for people, because so many people go through this and they jump on Facebook and they get lots of hugs and likes and lots of, oh, he'll do fine. And you know what? He may do fine, but he can do better if you pay attention to some of the things you should.
And there's information, and it's not just for three-legged dogs. Is there also information on cancer, right?
Yeah, so the majority of our members come to us because their dogs have cancer. So we have numerous interviews with oncologists and cutting edge therapies that are out there, intralesional chemotherapy, electrochemotherapy, some of this cutting edge stuff, and amputation alternatives. We were back at UC Davis last year, and we profiled a case where the amazing vets there helped save a tiny little dog's leg from amputation by actually regrowing bone.
Wow.
It was a terrible break that wouldn't heal, and their bone morphogenetic protein was involved to actually regrow the bone itself and prevent that dog's leg from being amputated.
Wow.
So there's all sorts of nutrition information for canine cancer, pet cancer, the best gear you might need to help out your dogs once they have three legs. And the best thing that we offer, the number one product, is a warm, fuzzy feeling. Yeah. I mean, you're talking to people who know it, because oftentimes the friends and family don't quite offer the support. We even encounter people that, spend, $10,000, $15,000 over the course of canine cancer treatment who have been told, well, you could buy a lot of dogs for that. A lot of people just don't get it.
Yeah, of course.
When your heart and soul dog goes through this, TriPawds people tend to, go to extreme lengths and have a special connection with their animals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about the money at that point. I mean, I was thinking, well, can I get another dog and give him one of his kidneys when Silly was going through it? And you think about all these crazy things, because that's your life and soul in that animal. It's like, I really think that they're a mirror of us. I think they're a gift from God. So I think that's such a huge piece that people overlook when they say, well, this and that. I do respect people who say, you know what, my dog got cancer, I'm going to do this treatment, and I'm going to just let him go, and on their own will, and they don't overdo the treatment. But then I also understand people who just say, man, I don't care what it is, I got to do this. And sometimes that's somewhat selfish when they overdo the treatments and then the dog dies anyway, because your message, your journey, what you did was, here, I'm going to do this to ease the pain, and then, man, we are just going to blow through the world until the day you got to go out of this world.
That was the idea. Yeah.
All right, so now all this stuff that you did with the dog, like I said, I think this is just in my opinion, people always ask me my opinion, I don't know why, but they like to know it. And I just think, kind of ease the pain on the dog, and if it's their end of their life, you can't change, what's been handed down by God or whatever you want to call it. But you did this amazing journey. I want to talk, about this journey. You were in the Bay Area, and you bought this motorhome.
Eureka, California.
Okay,
so
Eureka.
Northern California there.
Yeah, so a bit north of San Francisco.
Yes.
For those people who don't know. And you bought this. It was like a fifth wheel, wasn't it? Or was it?
It was.
Okay.
Serendipity played out where we had a Ford Ranger at the time. We were talking about this plan of getting a trailer and a truck, and we were researching that. And one morning we were taking Jerry out to the beach, kind of at dawn, and we got T-boned in an intersection. Oh. And everybody was fine, but our truck was totaled. And that kind of set us on our way to get a trailer, because we needed a new truck. And we knew down the road we wanted to have a four-wheel drive truck. So we ended up getting this big truck, and people started looking at Rene going, what's going on? Why do you have this big truck? And before you know it, the word got out, and we went and got our new trailer, brought it home, and hit the road. Okay,
so you start in Eureka. Did Rene kind of map this thing out and say, okay, we're first going to go this way, that way, or did you just start driving?
We didn't get real detailed in that. The first step was to kind of make some stops with some friends and family throughout California, and stop at my brother's. We put on some solar power, and then we hooked up with her parents in Arizona, and we had a rough plan. I mean, we were living on the coast, and Jerry loved the beach, so the plan was to get to Maine and have him see the Atlantic coast by that fall.
Wow.
Time was like ticking, and we were still in the mode of, oh my God, when's he going to start showing signs of sickness? So basically we made a kind of a run through the lakes region and up across the top of the country, and got to Maine by that fall. And then, well, let's go to the Gulf. Let's have him swim in the Gulf. And we got down there by New Year's or so. And then we started working our way back across the country. And by the time we got back to Arizona, New Mexico, and finally in California, that's when we got the news about the metastasis. So it was all kind of focused on, okay, this is, the end is near, but what can we do to make the most of it? So we decided to head for Colorado. Earlier in the travels, we discovered a thing that's called work camping, where RVers can work somewhere in exchange for free rent. So we stayed on a farm in Florida and got to stay there for a month or so for free by putting in some hours on the farm.
Wow.
In New Mexico, we worked at a hot springs resort, and we got to soak all we wanted to for working a couple hours a day. And then we lined up a job in Colorado on a ranch in the mountains where we thought, oh, Jerry would love it. Let's, end is near kind of thing. But still, he wasn't showing it. And that was the most difficult part.
Yeah.
We were, we did have a follow-up after his initial treatments with the metronomics and such. And the vet said, I wouldn't say he's doing good. I'd say he's doing great.
Wow.
Normally, they expect to stabilize the disease. They call it stable disease. That's the goal with metronomics. Mm-hmm. And his tumors had actually shrunk. So between the metronomics or the immunity supplements, something was actually shrinking these tumors in his lungs. Wow. But dogs can live with much less lung capacity than people. And the vet explained that it's not really painful, just exhausting.
Right.
Until such a point when the tumors get so large that it starts pressing on other organs and such. So that's why he wasn't really showing his pain, but he was starting to get tired and more tired. And we were at the ranch when in, August, September of 2008, and he was starting to show signs of being tired, but in his eyes, he just, he wanted to keep playing. Mm-hmm. And, we'd tug on a stick and he'd sit down and we'd keep tugging on the stick with him because that's the new game. We adapt to the new normal. And then come October, then the appetite started to wane. And we went back to our vet had actually relocated to Colorado, and we were able to see her again. And she was a certified oncologist and said, here's a few more things we can do to, extend this quality of life. And we put him on prednisone, and bam, his appetite came back, but he was like a junkie. A steroid like that, it's not meant for long-term use. Right. And, it wasn't the Jerry we knew. And it helped improve his quality of life. It kind of snapped him out of the rut. But when the time came, we decided, we almost did that deed. It was up to us to make that call. And there's a story in the book about how we're in Jackson, Wyoming, and we thought it was the day just because the way he looked and he was lethargic. And we went to the vet, and Rene went inside. It was very impersonal, and we could see it was busy. And I looked back at Jerry in the back seat, and I thought he had stopped breathing, and I thought it was over. And he looked at me and he sat up and said, where are we going now? And by God, we went and we played, and we took a very short walk, maybe 100 feet or so, but he was loving it. It was under the Tetons. And then one morning, we had always kind of made a pact. The end came a little easier because we prepared ourselves, and we agreed never to let Jerry lose his dignity. Yeah. And my promise to Jerry was, not to let him experience, extreme pain and suffering for prolonged hospice per se. Yeah. And it came down to how I wanted to remember him. I wanted him to remember him happy. And then one day he took a fall coming out the steps. And then the next morning he didn't get up. He was in bed and he had wet his bed. And that was it. Rene just said, this is it. And now I'm going to cry. Yeah. But it was, there was that flash of, oh, what can we do? There's more we can do. Sure. But, then I'm just doing it for me. Yeah, that's when. And I had made a promise to Jerry. And when it, there comes a point, who are you doing it for? And we had made this promise, and it was beautiful. I mean, he was hopping around, and that last day he was still stopping to smell the roses. He still had a smile on his face, but I knew those days were just going to get worse. And under the big sky in Montana, outside of a small country vet, it was a beautiful ending to an incredible life.
Oh, man, you're going to make me cry now.
Yeah. So it's a tearjerker, but there's a lot behind the story and how we got there.
But I want to tell the listeners. I want to tell the listeners. You wrote a book about this.
We did,
and it's called "Be More Dog."
It is Be More Dog, learning to live in the now, because that's what Jerry taught us. I mean, it took us 10 years to write this book. after he passed.
Yeah.
You know, long story short, the introduction of the book talks about a scene where in early 2008, Jerry was still with us, and we were contacted by PBS, and they were doing a documentary called Why We Love Cats and Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to that oncology appointment and filmed us and kind of shared Jerry's story. The documentary is great. It's about the lengths people go to for their animals,
Mm-hmm.
and we're the crazy dog people. I mean, we sold everything, bought an ARV to enjoy these times. And the introduction talks about that scene and goes into kind of how that became the story. The story we were telling was this book.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't know it because we were just focused on living life to the fullest because that's what Jerry wanted to do. So it took a good 10 years for this to come out. And our first draft was a tome. It was War and Peace. And the hardest part was editing it down to keep those lessons he taught us in there and in a digestible form.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think that dogs that's why I founded this organization called Bound Angels. I think dogs are angels, and I think somehow, I don't know what your faith is, it doesn't matter to me, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that, God sends these angels to us. They don't talk to us. They don't, but they listen amazingly well. And the things that they communicate to us with their eyes and their spirit and their personality, their body language is just the lessons I think that come from heaven. I just think there's an amazing lesson there that people should know. And I think in your book, Be More Dog, whether your dog is sick or not, I think you should read this book. And I think you should really take the lessons because it'll help you experience your dog better. I read some short excerpts out of it, but anything you can get that opens your eyes more, forget all the crazy, social media and all this stuff. Get something that is deep and that's going to transform your life. Because checking, my Facebook page, I don't care if you check that, but it doesn't really give you that tool to make the next moment better. And too many people are hung up on it. Kids are hung up on it. Kids are playing violent video games, and people
Mm-hmm.
are so hooked up in politics and social media and all this other crap. But here's a story, Be More Dog, that gives you this amazing journey that you did that will now lend something to you and your dog. Somebody else and their dog can get a lesson out of that.
I appreciate that because that was our goal. And what you're saying is so true. I do believe we have this connection with animals if we're willing to listen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you say something in your training methodology about the ability to understand dogs, of
Mm-hmm.
course, having compassion, but then also the ability to kind of translate that
Mm-hmm.
into, you say canine conversations. I had plenty of conversations with Jerry, and it's just a matter of, opening your eyes and listening to them.
Yeah.
And the book has a foreword by the Mutts creator, Patrick McDonnell.
Mm.
He's, Mutts is a great strip for animal lovers, but he starts it by saying something that kind of sums this up, where he says, he actually quotes Milne, the author of Winnie the Pooh. He says, "Some people talk to animals, not many listen though.
Yeah.
That's the problem." And then he goes on and talked about how we listen to Jerry, but it's true. We need to listen. And you may be familiar with The Monks of New Skeet, being a German Shepherd fan, but we read that book early on in Jerry's life, and they talk about the in-seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I learned to communicate with Jerry, by, just connecting deep in the eyes. And, I believed that the thoughts that were coming into my head were communicating. And over the years, there were many examples in the book that kind of illustrate that we were on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, the message is there. Whether you want to listen to it or not, that's really up to you.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
And I think that's a really important piece. I mean, I think there's probably really a lot of brilliant people, but we kind of just think we just ignore them, I think, because of the message. And I think animals have an amazing spiritual gift. And by not being able to speak, I think it makes the message louder.
True, because you have to listen so much more intently.
Yeah.
And we believe Jerry, we often referred to him as our Zen Master.
Yeah.
He was, even as a puppy, he was the one who would, tell us to be patient or tell us to breathe and go out and have fun. But he was our spiritual leader. And a lot of people think that's just woo-woo, but I believed it. And to this day, he is touching so many people out there.
Yeah. No, so getting him used to this life in the motorhome, I mean, besides you and Rene, was it hard? Was he like, where's my yard? Where's this? Like, did you, and how did that journey go? Because trust me, I have thought about this journey a million times. And Janet won't go for it. I know she won't.
So that's interesting. And Rene had a big, serious concern about that, and
Yeah.
wondering, well, is Jerry going to feel at home?
Yeah.
And in the PBS documentary, one of the people in that was a certified animal behaviorist.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually reached back out to her and talked about, like, is this going to make a difference? And she said, no, his home is with you.
Right.
It's not any particular place.
Right.
And you think about the pack mentality, and it's so true. It's why we kind of decided to hit the road and roam the travel the country as a pack. And we didn't plan so much, because we kind of let him be our pack leader, and we would just kind of follow his lead.
Mm-hmm.
And by just agreeing that every day is a great day no matter what, so let's go enjoy it to the fullest.
But what was that journey like? So how
Sure.
how much of the day did you drive, and then did you drive so many days and get somewhere and stay there for so many days? That's what intrigues me.
So we had a rough plan of getting to the Northeast
Mm-hmm.
within a few months. So we did take our time, and it would, if we had, we would drive like 5 hours each day for a while, and then stay in an area for a while. So
Okay.
Rene would kind of research area. What we were doing was looking for the next community to settle down in. So we had this short list of small towns. Like, we'd read stories about which are the best small towns, and what areas do you think. So we were kind of still in that mindset of quote unquote settling down. So we would kind of blow through some areas and settle in an area, and then explore and talk to realtors, and then kind of repeat that all the way across the country. And then we realized that we have settled down. This is our new routine.
And where do you park them? Like, it's a big motorhome. I saw the picture. It's huge. So where do you park it, hook it up, and do that?
Sure. So that first rig was a 27-foot fifth wheel.
Wow.
And it's kind of small for fifth wheels, as fifth wheels go. But with the four-wheel drive truck, we outfitted it with solar power and satellite internet, so that we could get online anywhere. So the majority of our time we spent what we call boondocking, which is just finding public lands,
Mm-hmm.
and BLM land and national forests. And that's where Jerry loved it best. He loved the forest and the mountains and the desert. So we would just find somewhere that's accessible by a dirt road or gravel road, and park and just enjoy the peace and quiet of being way out there alone.
Wow.
And then in between, of course, there's logistical issues with RVs where you have to dump your wastewater and
Mm-hmm.
get more fresh water. So then we'd go to an RV park, hook up for a while, clean real well, fill up with water, and then go out and do it again.
Did you worry for your safety, or did Rene worry about her safety? Like when you guys were on these BLM lands, because that's there's just nobody else there. It's just you. That's I think that's a guy's thing personally. I talk to my friend Kevin about that all the time. It's like you just go, it's just me and my dog. I'm gonna just go and and be in the middle of nowhere, which is cool. I don't know. Women usually don't really go for that much.
Well, at first it was a concern, and we had a friend who at 70 years old rode his motorcycle around the country, or he did it at 50 and then did it again at 70. Wow. And we had talked to him. We're like, oh, do you take a gun? And he's like, no, you're just asking for trouble. And we had done enough research where we realized, fear is kind of, it's a mindset. Yeah. And we learned to keep ourselves out of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
We did end up staying one time down on the Mexican border, and there was clearly activity at night where, we heard a truck kind of stopping and going and stopping and going, yeah. but never really felt in danger. So then we just kind of realized, well, maybe we just want to stay out of that. We just stay out of that way.
I would have brought a gun. I would have brought a gun. Okay, so now I said Jerry got used to being in the motorhome and stuff like that.
He did.
Now, what about I know a lot of times you'll get a dog and they have a surgery or something like that, and then other dogs will pick on them. Were you more careful about other dogs who would then meet Jerry?
So at the first we were like helicopter parents. Mm-hmm. I was so afraid that he was going to be injured, and Rene was even worse. She was just the mothering person. And then we did kind of some research, and some rehab vets told us, focus on healing the body a lot. If you want life to be normal again after this, you got to act as though life is normal.
For sure.
Jerry was looking up to us as the pack leader.
Yeah.
So the worst recoveries we see in our community are the ones with the people who panic the worst. They're mm-hmm. doting on their dogs. They're feeding them by hand. They're sleeping next to them on the floor. And the dog's like, what's going on? This is weird. Why are you acting that way? Yeah. So it becomes worse. So a little tough love goes a long way.
But
There's a
other
scene in the
dogs
book.
meeting him, did you ever have a situation where another dog met him and they were a little kind of weird to him? Because I've seen dogs act weird with dogs with 3 legs.
Dogs did tend to sniff the area.
Yeah.
And we never had the incident, but we have heard of incidents where there will be more aggressive dogs that will kind of take advantage of the weaker dog.
But you watched for that. You kind of
But we
kept,
did.
Good.
We did.
Good.
We were watching like hawks.
Good.
There was a scene in the book where it's his first day, like going outside to play with his old toys, and he loved hula hoops. He'd tear them apart, and he hadn't seen it since before the amputation, and he ran towards it, grabbed it, picked it up, and shook it, and kind of forgot all those muscles were healing. He snapped his head and just yelped and fell, and Rene ran to his side, but I grabbed her and said, just wait.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And he got up, he shook it off and said, okay, I got to adapt to this new normal. And he did. And we just kind of followed his lead and realized, you know what, we just got to take things a little differently. It's not worse. It's just different.
It's just different. And that's the key. People, they get a rescue dog and they baby it. Oh, it was abused. They baby it. They nurse it. They do this. And that really screws with a dog's mind. They become,
it does.
And I always say that to people. And that's one of the number one things I go through when I do my behavioral sessions is people ruin their dogs by trying to help them.
That's a good point.
They're helicopter parents, and I say, look, at some point, first thing you do with a kid, you put, and here I am talking as a father, I don't even have a kid, but you put the training wheels on the bicycle, and then you kind of take the training wheels off the bicycle, and you kind of hold the bicycle, but at some point, you got to let go, and inevitably they're gonna fall.
And how you gotta let them fall.
Yeah, and how you handle that fall is what creates the man or the woman from the child.
So true.
Right, and the same thing with our dogs. We want them to grow up. We want them to mature. And and I mean, your wife's obviously great about it. Janet's fantastic with dogs. I mean, I've seen her with the puppy, and that's what you really need. You need to kind of be, and I think that's another part of this thing. And I think you probably talk about it more in your book. I didn't see it, but I'm assuming is that you're a team. If you're a husband and wife or a husband, whatever you are, you've got to be a team and say, we're going to do this together. We're not going to argue about it. We're going to do what's best for the dog and kind of come to a conclusion on it, because the worst part is the disagreements.
It's so true. And it's especially important when your dog goes through any sort of major surgery, especially one of amputation. You all got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because if one is always running to his side and picking him up and carrying him outside, the dog's going to say, hey, this is great. I don't need to rebuild my muscles. They're going to come feed me in my bed, and they're going to carry me outside. So we need to work together and be on the same team, not only us as a pack, but with our veterinary team and hopefully some sort of rehab team, because a lot of vets these days will still say, he'll be fine. Let him be a dog. And he will. And that can hurt him over time.
Sure.
But there are things we can do to moderate his activity or just change things up to make sure he doesn't injure himself.
What was the most memorable? I think I know the answer. But what was the most memorable part of the journey with Jerry?
Wow, there was so many. It was the milestones were most important for me because I wanted to see him swim in the Atlantic, and he did. And then I wanted to see him swim in the Gulf, and he did. And the Gulf swimming was really memorable for me. We were staying on a farm at the time in Florida, and there were chickens, and he would kind of chase the chickens, but no, he would never catch a chicken. It was so hard to pick any particular one. Of course, the most memorable is the worst, when we set him free.
That's what I thought.
But there was a scene on the farm in Florida that taught us about perseverance and never giving up. I told you, when we picked Jerry up in the kennel as a puppy, he was tearing apart a laundry basket, just shredding it to bits. And on that farm, I had kept my small generator inside a plastic tub, and it was breaking apart, and it was time to replace it. And I took the generator out and I threw the tub in near the rig where we were staying, and Jerry attacked it. And he had one front leg, but he attacked it just like he did that laundry tub. And it took him a week, but every day he came out and he ran to that tub and just shook it and tore it into little bits until one day he sat down in front of it panting and just kind of looked around and said, okay, job done. And it was just an amazing story of perseverance and never giving up. that took me all the way back to his puppyhood.
So now, it's just, I mean, I have such a hard time talking about dogs passing and being gone because I still can't imagine. My dog's been gone for almost over 10 years, about 10 years now, and I still can't grasp it. I still go to the cemetery like an idiot and visit him. And I've got a box with all the stuff in his collar and in the blanket he died on. I've got all that stuff, and I keep it. I bring it to the cemetery, and on his birthday, I bring him a little stuffed animal. And Goofy goes with me. Sometimes Maya goes with me, but at some point we get another dog. And you mentioned that you did get another dog, which I think is fantastic, because people like you are the ultimate dog owners. Because I just the way you're like me, because I think I'm the greatest dog owner. But I think I fail miserably because I get so emotionally wrapped up in the dog that the dog is my whole life. But now Jerry died in what year?
So I hear you there. Jerry is still under our bed in a box, and it was 2008, October 2008, and only recently have we started to come to terms and start spreading Jerry in some of his favorite places as we retrace those steps.
That's awesome.
And that takes place. And the big spoiler alert here is that we did eventually get another dog. There's no mention no mention of it in the book because it's kind of Jerry's story, and we weren't didn't want to steal his glory. But I talked about our first version of the book being just so long because we did get into it in the end about how we met Wyatt, our new dog, and that was it was about 8 or 9 months after Jerry had passed. And again, I was not ready for another dog. I mean, Jerry was so much a part of my heart that a piece was and is still missing. Yeah. But I've come to terms with that. But we had this growing TriPawds community, and we had become friends with some members, and a couple in particular, they're angels themselves. They had 3 German Shepherd rear leg tripod dogs in Oakland, California, because they worked with the local rescue there. Because dogs get neglected and they get tethered and they lose a leg, and this is a thing in the inner city, and they became these angels that take them in and foster them and get them out to the new people. And it was about 8 months after Jerry had passed, and they said, you got to come meet Wyatt. He's a great dog, and you need a new TriPawds mascot. And I wasn't ready, but we were at a point where we were going back out to California anyway. So I agreed, okay, we can at least go meet him. And I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
We met Wyatt, and sure enough, he entered our life.
Just I want to back up for a second, because you say people tether their dog, which I hate people who tether their dogs. It's so horrible. But why do they lose a leg when they're tethered? I don't get it.
So in Wyatt's case, his people, he was a purebred German Shepherd dog, beautiful, European bred, and for some reason, at some point, they tethered him outside and ignored him, and he was rather skinny when we met him. And what happened was, by being tethered and being a crazy dog and wanting to run around, that cable got wrapped around his leg, and it strangulated the leg to the point where these people decided, they finally said, we should go to the vet, and they take the dog in. We've seen pictures. It's just gruesome how they waited so long. But the doctor said, this leg has got to come off to save this dog's life. And they said, we don't want a 3-legged German Shepherd, put him down. And the vet tech there said, go home. We'll take care of it. And go away, sign over this dog. And sure enough, they knew better. The vets knew better, that this dog was a perfectly healthy dog.
Sure.
We put some weight on him, and they removed that leg, and they worked with the local rescue there, and Martha and Ralph found Wyatt and took him in as their 3rd rear leg tripod. Wow. And they contacted us, and now he's the new TriPawds spoke dog, and he just turned 10.
Wow. How old was he when you got him?
11. He just turned 11. This all happened at 8 months old or so.
Okay.
And reading his story and kind of doing a little more research about what happened with dog, I believe, and how researching his behavior, I believe he was pulled from his weaning too soon. He never quite learned the difference between fighting and playing. So he's still dog aggressive, but he he loves kids, he loves people, but if he sees another dog, he'll let you know it.
Wow.
So he was pulled, I believe, too early. I believe he was probably put in a home, and then they found out it wasn't going to work well, so they put him out back. He loses a leg. He meets us. We hit the road, and all of this happened within the first year of his life. So,
Wow.
when he should have been having structure in his life and learning what it means to be a dog and how to be a good dog, he was kind of thrown for a loop. Right. So he's taught us a number of lessons quite different than what Jerry taught us. Most importantly, kind of humility.
Yeah. Yeah, having an aggressive dog is tough. I mean, it takes a special person to handle those dogs. And, I always say aggression is something you're not going to cure. It's something you manage, because it's something that's kind of hardwired into their brains.
That's good to know, because we tried various methods, and some methods at some points might have even made it worse. And we've gotten to the point where we can manage him. We can handle him. He pays attention to us, and we avoid those situations with the small white dogs on the flexies with the people who don't pay attention.
That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare for even dogs who are. Goofy's very friendly, but he likes to play with dogs.
Sure.
But if he sees a dog at the end of a leash, especially like a 20-foot leash, he just thinks it's a toy. So it's
right. And some people, don't think their dog's being aggressive just because it's smaller.
Yeah.
But if you look at the activity of a small dog lunging and barking, and the person laughing, saying he just wants to play, I disagree, and I walk away, because I'm not going to get into it with them. No. But if my dog is doing that, they're going to call the police. Yeah, they're going to put him down.
Different story. Now, are you doing, are you still traveling? Or are you back to Silicon Valley?
We are.
Okay.
No, not at all. So to this date, we are now almost 13 years on the road full time. We manage TriPawds community and the foundation from our mobile headquarters. And I'm currently in Southern California near the Salton Sea. And when it warms up too much, we'll start heading north back to Colorado and just keep on going.
I think it's such a good idea. Janet and I are talking about moving, and we say, we love the weather here in California, and we love cold and rain and stuff like that, but we don't really like it too cold. So this is a good idea. I'm going to have a listen to this podcast and say, you just get a really big trailer, and you follow the weather stream.
You can, and it's possible. And our whole other life at our Live Work Dream site is about how we do what we do and helping people understand that you can do it too.
Wait, what is that? That's a different website you have?
Oh, yeah. So when we were selling our business, Rene said, we need a blog to do this. And I coined the term live, work, dream, because we had this dream, live, work experience. We lived upstairs, worked downstairs, and we started this little blog to help sell the business. And then once we did, we started blogging about our travels and our adventures and fixing things that go wrong in an RV and how to find RV parks. And so that's liveworkdream.com. And that's just kind of our other half of our life.
Wow, that's amazing. So now, so you're still traveling around. You take Wyatt with you now.
We do.
And Wyatt's the spokesdog for TriPawds. And I just want to kind of make sure people have a really good handle on what we're talking about today, because there's way too much information. There's TriPawdscom, which is this online resource for people where they can get information about, and it doesn't have to just be a three-legged dog. You can have a three-legged dog with a spare leg, like we all do, like a lot of us do, and get a lot of information there about health and stuff like that. People always ask me about supplements and stuff, so I'm going to steer them over to you guys. That's a really good thing to have. But you also have TriPawds.org.
Correct. So building the community that we did started to become expensive. And, we host 1,500 blogs now for three-legged dogs and cats, and there was a lot of expenses involved. And we wanted to help more directly, and we didn't want to monetize the site so much, because people are already going through all these expenses.
Sure.
And now we don't want to charge them to access this information. So we formed the nonprofit foundation, TriPawds.org, to help keep that all free. There's a toll-free helpline that people can call and talk to other pet parents who have been through this. And our volunteers answer and say, no, we're not vets, but yes, your dog will go potty. It might take a couple days. And yes, they will adapt. And they point them to all the free resources. And now we're helping to pay for amputation surgeries with people who qualify. And anyone who takes a three-legged animal to get a consultation with a rehab veterinarian, a therapist, just to learn about weight management and exercise, we'll pay for that first visit up to $200.
Wow. Well, that's TriPawds.
Correct.
Right, that's
.org
important.
for the assistance programs, and .com for the video interviews. There's a live chat there any time of day. People pop in and out, and the forums are where most people find all the help. And there's ebooks if they don't want to spend time researching. But there's cats and dogs, and just a wealth of information about the veterinary industry and why you might want to go to an AHA hospital or accredited surgeons, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, that's really important. And I think we got to drive the point home that if there's something suspicious with your dog, and Janet maybe do it with Goofy, he's got a bloody nose, he's had all the sneezing. Everybody said, well, maybe he's got this or that. And I don't know what he's got. I mean, I pray to God that it's okay. But she's like, nope, we're going to get him checked out. And, we've been like, now I've got a call and I'm waiting for a call back from a vet. You just got to follow your heart, because your dog will not tell you if they're sick.
It's true. I mean, they're so good at hiding the pain.
Yeah.
Out in the wild, they're going to go leave the pack and hide under a tree and heal on their own. But there's Dr. Sue Cancer Vet. She's out there and she's an advocate for see something, do something. If you see a lump, immediately you need to measure it, have a vet measure it, get a biopsy, find out what it is. It might just be some kind of fatty tissue, but if it's not, you want to act on it quickly.
Yeah, and even though it's not curable, I mean, cancer, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some dogs, get cured of cancer, but if it's not curable, it's kind of sustainable.
Right, and it all depends on the cancer. Like osteosarcoma, you're not going to cure it. You're going to get rid of the primary tumor, and it will come back eventually. But things like mast cell tumors and soft tissue sarcomas, if you get good enough margins around that tumor, you can be permanently in remission, or at least for a very long time.
Right.
But the idea is to act on it quickly.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a really important piece that I always talk about. I remember, my dad was murdered, but my aunt died of cancer, and all these things. And I kind of think there's this saying that a friend of mine talked about. It was in the Bibles, I think, in the Hebrew scriptures more, where it talked about that age and sickness was a gift from God, so that we could be able to say goodbye. Right?
Interesting.
So when Silly got sick, I mean, I remember it was 30 days until the day he died, from the day he got diagnosed with kidney failure, because it was really late.
Wow.
And every single day I hugged him, I kissed him, I fed him with a syringe, and I would carry him on the beach. Because I used to tell him, when you can't walk on the beach anymore, I'm going to carry you. And we lived across the street from the beach, so we did that every day. And those 30 days were a gift. So if your doctor says to you, your dog's got a month, 6 months, or a year, that what you did, and this is why I wanted to have you on the show, is you did take the honor and say, we're going to celebrate those days and hours and weeks, and which for you became 2 years. And that's really an important piece, that you don't just start feeling sorry, but you say, okay, you know what? This is God giving me this gift to say goodbye.
It's so true. And it really is a gift. And it's why we say, be more dog, because the dog doesn't know he's sick. Yeah. He only knows he wants to feel better. Yeah. Even if that means ending the pain permanently. Yeah. And when it comes to these, these fatal conditions, we like to say it's all about quality of life, not quantity. Because the first thing people think is, how long do I have? How long do I have? Yeah. But then you're always focused on that instead of focusing on the present and being aware of what a gift today is. Yeah. And tomorrow it can be another gift. And there's ways to judge quality of life. And when it's no longer worth living, it's up to us to make that call for them. Yeah, it's a hard call. Hardest one we could ever do, but it's the best gift you can give them. Yeah, you're giving them dignity. I mean, I wish we could do it for people. You know what I mean? Me too. I mean, it would be just a real gift to be able to say, man, this. And in I think in some states in America, it's legal now to do that. I do think there is a dignity to it. I mean, it's a moral dilemma for me, but I just think, man, I just don't want to. I don't want to suffer. I mean, if I can't have a great quality of life anymore, it might be time for me to go, meet my makers. I agree. But so anyway, your book, Be More Dog, it's available on Amazon. It's available anywhere books are sold, I'm sure, right? That is correct. BeMoreDog.net has all the different ebook versions and the paperback. We have a special gift edition with some goodies and a signed copy, as well as what we're doing there in that blog is sharing excerpts, because we have, 10 years of life with Jerry, where we're sharing videos that back up excerpts from the book, and we'll write a bit about the book, show some photos from that scene to get people, really in seeing it a little deeper. Mm-hmm. So that's BeMoreDog.net. Okay. But you can ask your local bookstore for one, and you can order it for you. Or you just go on Amazon and kill the local Amazon bookstore as well. Yeah.
Okay, so that's BeMoreDog.net. I want to put all this stuff in the description below because we're going to put a video podcast
Thank
of
you.
this up as well. And then TriPawds.org, PAWDS, it's really important, is if not, you're going to get like a Manfrotto photo tripod. You have all the online resources for that, and then you also have the online community at TriPawdscom.
Correct.
Okay, so there's a ton of different stuff, and if you want to do, if you want the journey that Jim and Rene had, then you just go to liveworkdream.com, right?
And you don't have to wait until your dog's sick.
Yeah, no, yeah. Don't wait till your dog's sick. I mean, I took Silly cross country, I think 4 or 5 times back and forth when I was living in Nashville. We would drive back and forth, and it was the greatest fun we had. We would go to Denny's, and he would eat egg whites and stuff, and we stayed in hotels, and he like puked and had diarrhea in one corner of a hotel once. It was great. My friend Drew on a trip back. It's great.
We actually believe it was that lifestyle that helped prolong Jerry's prognosis. We believe every day being a new adventure, and him sticking his head out the window and smelling where we were going next kind of gave him reason to live as long as he did, because he beat the odds.
Well, you did an amazing thing for Jerry. I'm sure, he's looking down from heaven and saying, man, I had the greatest dad on the planet and greatest mom. So I think that's an amazing piece. But I think what's really so moving is Jerry's spirit, and your great gift that you gave him lives on with all these people you help, because so many people go through something and then they kind of move on. You kind of stayed in this lesson, and you're helping people through it. And I think it's the greatest gift you're doing. I think it's so awesome.
Well, thank you so much. We had to do it. We call it his legacy. Get it? Legacy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't. That's good. Legacy. It's good. That's really good. So anyway, thank you for being on the show. I'm going to put the links in the YouTube video description. I can't do it on the podcast, but I think we talked about them all. Be More Dog is the book. BeMoreDog.net. TriPawds, PAWDS.org is the foundation. TriPawds.com is the online help form. Jim, you're amazing. I wish we could have had Rene on as well, but albeit we got to have a little guy talk, and I'm going to try now to get Janet to get into a big motorhome and travel.
All right. Well, we wish you the best. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Stand by for one more second. All right, that wraps up our podcast, guys. Thanks so much for being here. This was an amazing guest. I learned so much. I had such a great time talking with Jim. Check out his organization. I'll put all the links down below. And check on my website, my social media and everything. We'll put links to all the YouTube videos and everything. And I'll see you next time.